Plank. Presented by Ram continues on ABC Action News Now.
All right, you knuckleheads, welcome back to the Plank. Yeah, it's time to talk about the Detroit Lions. What do you say, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's bring in Tom Lydon from WXYZ, sports director. He joins us on Skype. Oh, look at that guy. T-Man, how's the Motown treating you?
Hey, last time that we had a chance to talk, we were playing Let's Ask America, and
Yes,
I remember somebody named Tom, who was not me, being victorious.
Well,
I remember that.
We got lucky, man. We got lucky. I want you to know that we taped that all the way till like 5:30. I had a half an hour to put the show together, too. That was
good.
That was
Raise money for charity.
Yeah, it was great. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And I guess you're going to have a lot of fun this weekend because I doubt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could walk into Ford Field and pull off the upset. You guys are playing some pretty good football.
It's been a fun year because it's the new coach. It's been an infusion of talent, but I've been watching your show, and you alluded to a key thing. The Lions have been here. I mean, they haven't been 8-4 in a long time, but they've been in position to seize a playoff opportunity and completely blown it. And as recently as last year, it cost the coach his job. And it was shocking that the team was able to completely disintegrate over the month of December. So this year, you know that you're chasing the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be very difficult to catch them. But the fact is, if you remain one game behind the Packers and you go up to Green Bay on that final game of the season, which many people think is going to be a Sunday night game, if the Lions beat the Packers, they win the division and probably likely get a bye in that first round. So we can think ahead, and I know you guys do just like I do, but the players know that a 2-8 Bucs team came up to Detroit last year and knocked them off.
Yeah,
right.
well, let me tell you
we were
what,
just talking about
you
that.
look ahead to the playoffs. We look ahead to the draft. It's like a big difference here.
Tom, I was here through an 0-16 season. I had 5 months of draft talk. Who's going to be the quarterback? Who's going to be the next pick?
Yeah, I got
Oh, that was a horrible
I
year.
understand. Yeah, was it Roddy Marinelli?
Yeah, Rob Marinelli.
I love
In
that.
fact, you remember Doug Williams, the former Tampa Bay quarterback, well-respected, everything else. He was up here for the game in 08 between the Bucs and the Lions, and the Lions actually jumped out to a 14-0 lead. I was sitting right next to him because I've always been intrigued by him. We had a couple great conversations, and I said, don't worry, man. You're going to be fine.
Look what happened.
Tampa won the game.
Well, Tom, you mentioned that game last year, and the Bucs came in there and stole a game. They won their third game of the year. But that game was pretty much handed to the Bucs because the Lions turned the ball over 5 times, 4 picks by Stafford. It seems like, and I think, Tom, you're going to agree with me, the only way the Bucs somehow win this game, they're not going to be outplayed. They're just going to have to somehow capitalize on those turnovers. But Matthew Stafford is not the same quarterback as he was like a year ago this time last year.
That's true. I think they've reeled him in a little bit. That was the Tyquan Underwood breakout game.
Yes, yeah, 2 touchdowns. And now he's playing for who?
Carolina.
No,
he was on Carolina's roster most recently.
Okay, because I know about a month or so ago, I don't know if he was on the practice squad or got released or something, but yeah, I don't know. He might be on the.
He's actually 5'8". With his hair, he's 6'4".
Yeah,
that's right. But you know what was interesting is that was very indicative of some of the problems in the secondary because that specific play where I think he broke like an 80-yard touchdown or whatever it was, it was Louis Delmas's fault, and it looked as though it was Chris Houston's fault, and everybody pointed a finger at the cornerback. But the fact is, it was the safety who made the mistake. And those are very difficult for the casual fan to recognize. And Lewis had that happen a lot because he missed a lot of practice. So he would get on the field on Sundays, not having communicated with many of his teammates throughout the week, and something like that would happen, which is why there were so many holes in the secondary. So what they did this year is they let Lewis go. Great guy, good athlete, had trouble staying healthy here, but he's been okay in Miami. And they wanted to get more intelligent, more reliable when it comes to health players at the safety position. So they got Glover Quinn. This is his second year here. And they have James E. Hedibo, who's been bouncing around the league, but he's played for the Patriots. Obviously good defense, good coaching staff. Played for the Ravens. Obviously good defense, good coaching staff. And he brings up that winning experience, that winning pedigree, and that intelligence. And we've already seen it pay off. In the game against New Orleans, they got a pick late. It was Glover Quinn who got a pick. And the way it happened and the reason it happened is because those two safeties actually swapped responsibilities just by looking at each other in the eye. And they kind of winked at each other, and they did something, each of them, that neither one had done throughout the whole game. Drew Brees got confused. He ended up throwing the interception that was probably, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, the play of the year for the Lions because they were able to score the go-ahead touchdown after that. So that intelligence in the secondary has helped a lot. I don't think you're going to see a lot of those meltdowns like you did last year.
Obviously Calvin Johnson's going to command a lot of attention in this game, but I take a look at it. Bell's been a pretty good cowbell for you in that backfield, and Reggie. I guess Reggie's coming back. Reggie's playing this week, right? Bush is playing.
Yeah, it looks as though everybody except Nick Fairley is probably going to be back. So that bodes well for the offensive line because they've been without their right guard, Larry Warford, and their left tackle, Riley Reif, combined one game, but Warford's missed the last 3. So it's good that both of those guys were in for the entire practice, as Reggie Bush was too. Reggie's been an enigma, man. He's only scored 1 touchdown this year, and they've done much of what they've done without him. Now, do I think he'll be useless down the stretch here? No, I think it's great that you can get a guy like him back in the mix in December. He's got the experience. He's maybe a little bit fresher because he has been resting. He doesn't have those bumps and bruises. But I'm a big fan of what Joique Bell does because it seems every time he touches the ball, even if it's 1 or 2 or 3 yards, at least he's not going backwards. He's one of those guys who even will fall forwards and get you something. And Theo Riddick is the guy who ultimately is going to replace Reggie Bush. I mean, I don't see Reggie probably being here next year based on what they've experienced this year. With the emergence of Theo Riddick. But to have Theo, who's played well, Joique Bell, who's a workhorse, and then Reggie coming back for the final 4 regular season games and hopefully a playoff run, that's a pretty good combination.
Tom, is Reggie going to return punts too? And is he going to be set up there? Because I remember historically he kills the Bucs on punt returns.
No, if you're a Bucs fan, he will not be doing that. That responsibility has been Jeremy Ross's all season.
Okay.
So
that's good.
Particularly coming off the ankle injuries, they're not going to do that with Reggie.
Right.
I got you. All right.
Well,
okay.
You mentioned Bell, and this guy came out of nowhere. He's got 5 touchdowns. Who would have thought this no name of a player has 5 touchdowns, tied with Calvin Johnson with 5?
And J.J. Watt.
Yeah, there you go.
Watt,
right.
Yeah. The best tight end in the business, right?
Calvin struggled to score, and then he had the injury. He was out for basically a month. He missed 3 games and then the bye week, so he missed 4 weeks between games. And he hadn't gotten in the end zone after the opener against the Giants on Monday night. He scored 2 touchdowns. So it took a long time. But when he did come back, and I think it was in the game against the Dolphins at home, he scored a touchdown early. It was like, hey, I'm back, which is great. But what you saw was Matthew fall into some old habits of trying to force the ball to Calvin. And there was the game against Arizona where Golden Tate was only targeted twice. And they needed to have that come to Jesus meeting where they need to get everybody involved. And I think what you saw on Thursday when they played the Bears is that a lot of people got involved. He was able to spread the ball around. He was efficient. He was quick. They had good pace. They liked the rhythm. And the more people get involved, the more active they're going to be, the more energetic they're going to be because they know it can come to them anytime.
Well, Tom, you just mentioned Nick Fairley may not play on Sunday. We know how good this defense is, especially when stopping the run. One of the best defenses in the National Football League at stopping the run. The Bucs can't even establish the run. Only had 2 or 3 games all year breaking the 100-yard plateau. So if the Bucs somehow pull out a win, is this going to be through the air on the offensive side?
Do you know that Chicago only ran the ball once the entire second half? I've never seen that in all my years of watching the National Football League. They basically abandoned any attempt to run the ball. Now, I don't think you can go that far. You got to figure out some way to at least pitch the ball to your running back, see what Doug Martin can do around the corner. Or, is Bobby Rainey still part of the mix there? What's he going to do on the edge? Get those guys somehow involved, whether it be through a screen game or a sweep. You're going to have a hard time running up the middle. But Fairley just came back. He's nowhere near getting ready to play. He's not even on a bike yet or not even running yet. He hurt his knee pretty badly in London, of all places. Could you imagine injuring your knee, then having to hop on the plane and come back home? But that's what happened to him. And he was just back in the locker room yesterday for the first time, at least when the media was there. So it was the first time we had a chance to talk to him since the end of October. He wants to get back. I think it's one of those situations where the team is not putting him on IR because they're hoping that they do go to the postseason. And the deeper they get into the postseason, there might be some sort of opportunity that he could play. They just don't know. So they're keeping that roster spot, open for him.
Yeah, Tom, one of the only thing I'm concerned about for you guys in this game and maybe down the road through the regular season is your field goal unit is horrible. You guys can't make a field goal, and believe me, when you get down to these type games against the Green Bay Packers and that, you might need it, and you go and made 18 to 30 this season.
It's been bad. It's been bad. Now the guys who really struggled aren't here anymore. They had Nate Freese, who they drafted out of Boston College, who didn't work out through the first 3 weeks. Then they brought in Alex Henry, who had recently kicked with the Eagles, and he's basically the reason they blew the Buffalo Bills game. I mean, if they had Alex Henry making a field goal in the last 30 seconds, this team is looking at a 9-3 record right now. But they lose that game. They're 8-4. And then they bring in Prater, and he's been pretty good. I don't have his numbers specifically at my fingertips, but he hasn't really failed that much. He had a tough time his first game in Minnesota, which was outside, very windy. And since then, there haven't been many, many moments where he's kicked the ball and you're like, oh, here we go again. There's been dramatic times. You remember at the end of the London game against the Falcons, he missed what would have been the game-winning field goal, and then they luckily got called for a delay of game, pushed him back 5 yards, and then he made that one from 5 yards back. But it's been a little up-and-down roller coaster ride. They got the 2 games inside, and they can't lose either one of these games. You got to understand, from Detroit's perspective, if they lose either one of these games, it's likely that they won't make the playoffs. You can say whatever you want. They haven't won in Green Bay since the early 90s, and they'll always struggle in Chicago in December. So they have to beat Tampa. They have to beat Minnesota. And the hope is that Green Bay somehow loses one of these 3 games coming up so that Detroit can still be within that 1 game of the Packers when they square off on the 28th.
You know, it's crazy you're talking about how much this game means to the Lions at 8-4. This could doom their playoff chances if they lose. Talking about the tough schedule ahead for them. The NFC North is very much like the AFC North, where you have a lot of good teams with a lot of good records. Then you look at the NFC South, the garbage of the NFL when it comes to records. I mean, the Bucs last week, for God's sakes, were entering the game 2 games out of first and 1 game out of stealing the first-round draft pick.
And there's time we're still talking about they're only 4 out. It's like,
I know, it's crazy. It's one of those teams going to host a playoff game.
Yeah,
the Lions may end up being a wild card and going on the road and having to play Atlanta or New Orleans, and they've beaten both of those teams at home. It's crazy. I mean, that's got to be reassessed. But there's probably going to be 4 teams going for 2 spots because you're going to have Arizona. I mean, the teams in the mix: Arizona, Seattle, San Francisco, and then you got the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Lions and the Packers. I mean, do all that math, you can see that there's going to be division winners, but somebody's going to be on the outside looking in, and that somebody's probably going to have a 10-6, maybe even an 11-5 record. So you can't blow an opportunity to beat a team that's 2-10 at home.
Hey, Tom, listen, thanks a lot for the time. We appreciate it, and really, good luck to you guys this Sunday. Not that much luck, but, good luck anyway.
Anytime. This was fun. Well-produced show. I really appreciate you inviting me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, T.
Thanks.
See you. All right. Tom Lydon joining us from WXYZ. All right. And we are, I got, let's see. Oh, Johnny.
Oh, yes.
Johnny.
Well, as this big game's coming up, we want to know from you guys, the fans, can they win? Tom and I here don't think they will. Arthur Tom in Detroit doesn't think they will. We want to hear from you, 813-367-0171. Tweet us there with our handles with the hashtag #ThePlank. I already have a tweet coming in from one of our coworkers, Tom, but he's not talking or asking about this game. He wants to give a prediction on a different game. Our own Jason Bizo wants a prediction on the Colts-Browns game. He's a big Indy guy.
Oh, I can't wait to give you my thought on a Colts-Browns game.
Yeah. We'll get to that, Bizo, if you're out there watching.
All right, Jason. All right, listen, we're going to take a break, and he and I are going to be back. Well, what do we have? Oh, buckshot.
Buckshot time.
Buckshot. My turn to ask him 10 questions.